I was born and raised in a small town that had the status of a district center. I didn't have to travel far for a bride. Rachel lived on the same street named after George Washington. It was here that the events that influenced my fate and led to the breakup with my wife took place. The dairy plant was the only enterprise in our town where you could work. It was also located on this street. I worked there as a technologist for up to 4 years. Rachel worked as a controller. Then the dairy plant was ordered to live long and went under the hammer. An immigrant businessman from Texas bought the enterprise. He sold all the equipment. He only needed the premises. Instead of my native enterprise, Johnson set up a so-called warehouse, but in fact, counterfeit alcohol drinks were bottled here on a large scale. I am convinced that the law enforcement officers and authorities were well aware of what was happening. The case did not go without a corruption component. The surname and initials of Harold A. Johnson were perfectly associated with an amphibian reptile and turned into the abbreviation Gator. With this nickname, all the residents chased the dealer, although they did not show it. In all fairness, it should be recognized that this Gator hired locals. My countrymen loaded, washed, bottled. Johnson paid little money but on time. Rachel and I hit hard times, barely making ends meet with odd jobs. I thought about moving to the regional center and getting a job. But I was embarrassed to rent housing. And it was unclear whether it was worth the effort or not. Well, I didn't want to work for this Gator out of principle. We had been friends with Linda and Nick Anderson for a long time. As they say, our families visited each other. But since the moment I lost my job, there was no time for walks. The Andersons worked for Johnson, and Nick perfectly understood my situation and knew my position. And so one day they dropped by and started this conversation. Look how long you can suffer like this. Look how you live, this is poverty. Well, what if you had kids, what would you do then? Go work for Johnson, they are looking for a security guard and warehouseman right now. The salary is low, but you can live on it. And I proudly replied, I need nothing. This Gator specifically arranged for the dairy plant to die. I was a respected specialist there. And now you suggest that I go work security for him? Never. Furious, Linda left. Rachel did not delay the conversation. Later I learned that she had asked the Andersons to visit to find out about vacancies from Johnson. Mike, well, this is a way out of our lack of money. A couple of weeks later, she received a small advance until we were sitting, as they say, on bread and water. The warm May days came. I was actively fishing and selling my rather impressive catches. Nevertheless, it was not enough to bear the proud title of breadwinner. My wife's salary became the main income. That summer, the Gator decided to open a grocery store right next to our house. By that time, Rachel had proven herself to be executive, attentive, and accurate. Johnson offered her to manage the store. My wife gladly agreed. The products were just accompanying goods. Active sales of illegal alcohol took place here. Hordes of alcoholics from all over came here in droves. And I continued to walk around like an overblown turkey. Only now quite well fed, and I learned about my wife's infidelities from Nick. Don't you understand, she's with Johnson. Can't you see the gold on her? These are all gifts. The saleswoman Vicky heard the characteristic sounds coming from the manager's office. I realized I would not be able to let this situation go and walk around as if nothing had happened with my belly stuffed full of delicious food. And I wanted to take revenge on both of them. At the same time, I looked at myself from the outside. Most likely, if I could earn at least some money, there would have been no infidelity. But still, how could she? And with this Gator, I didn't even wait for my wife to come home from work. I packed my things and decided to go to the big city. I borrowed some money from Nick and wrote my wife a note. I know everything about your relationship with Johnson. I'm leaving for a divorce, I'll file it myself. And I remind you that this is my parents' house. When I return, I'll kick you out if I find you in my house. I won't be responsible for myself. Later, from Nick, I learned that Rachel had moved elsewhere. Johnson was married and had no intention of changing anything in his personal life. He only needed a store manager for work and for intimate pleasures. In the store, employees and visitors who came for alcohol began to call Rachel, Gator, just like her relationship with that reptile. She was rude and arrogant to everyone. This is what killed her. On her way home from work, she was attacked. Rachel was hit on the head with an iron pipe and robbed. The bandits were detained. They explained this act not only by the lack of money for a hangover but also by the fact that the manager had forbidden them to give out alcohol on credit. So they decided to kill this bitch. The injury was strong enough that she had to have surgery, and now my former beloved settled like a heavy burden on the shoulders of her elderly mother. And my life got better. I got a job by chance. Upon arriving in the city, an advertisement caught my eye. A technologist is required at a dairy plant. High salary, housing is provided. I immediately dialed the number. They hired me over the phone. However, I had to go to the other end of the region. Well, that's okay. It's even good in my situation. I've already settled in my new place and got divorced. Now I have a good salary, and even a woman appeared. She works at our plant. She's local. From the local TV news, I learned that the glory of Johnson's basement reached the capital and the heads of regional officials flew off. The Gator is also under investigation. Nick told me that work has become very tight, and soon they will leave with Linda. Such is life.